Hey, 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 everybody. This is Founder Laerun. I'm here with Erelon and Lady Shel. I am glad if you are joining us now because we are going to show
We're
you
not live
the
yet.
Vampire the Masquerade.
We're not
Yes,
live.
Yes, we are.
Vampire the Masquerade.
Doesn't look live to
And
me. Oh, probably because I
we
have my
got
thing paused. Sorry.
we got Lady Shel here,
Yeah,
and
being
we
all bossy.
have we're not live, everybody. Oh yeah, we're live. Erelon, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. After our minor technical difficulties, it seems we've got everything sorted. So,
Great. I was glad you were able to make it. I remember having this conversation with you several months ago about getting this rule set and pushing you towards it, and you were glad to leap. I appreciate that, and I know that you're a fan of Vampire. And then Lady Shell is here to help us moderate chat, and we have a little special prize later if you're in the chat. Lady Shell, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. You weren't supposed to say that.
Oh, okay.
I'm bossy, remember?
Well, anyways, so Erlon, how long have you been using Fantasy Ground?
I was not prepared for this question. I don't know exactly. Maybe 7 or 8 months now.
That's good. And Masquerade, the vampire series, how long have you been doing?
Well, I haven't been doing V5 for very long, but I've been playing in a Vampire the Requiem campaign, World of Darkness, generally for quite a while now.
Nice. Okay,
So,
so we're using Fantasy Grounds Classic right now, version 3.3.10, on the cusp of Unity. But until Unity comes out, we get to explore this beautiful rule set that was a long time in the make. I'm really happy it's out now. Lots of people getting into it, lots of hype on it. So, can you kind of just give us a rough idea of what you're going to show us today?
well, I thought we could. I know everybody's done character creation videos already, but they did a big update yesterday, I think. So I figured we could throw together a character, and I actually have a module for this that I had planned on releasing for use on Fantasy Grounds College if the other instructors want it or whatever. And then after that, we're going to look at some of the version 5 specific rules and economies that they might have existed in prior forms and prior editions, but they've been updated or they've changed the way that things worked, and I think one of them is completely new. So should be
Great.
some stuff here for everyone.
Good. All right, so let's get started. Lady Shell, do you have any initial questions?
I don't know anything about this other than it's about vampires, so I'm interested to get up to date on things. Also, I posted in the chat that if anyone has any questions, to just use the prefix question before your questions, and then I would be relaying the questions on to you guys.
Okay. And Erlon, you can pretty much take the stage. I might, between a pause or when you have to take a breath, I might try to sneak in a question about the rule set, but I'm not going to interrupt you that much.
I mean, feel free to interrupt, seriously. But all right. So just looking at the table itself, I mean, they put a lot of work into really making the rule set for V5 on Fantasy Grounds feel like the same art style as the books. I appreciate that personally. So we have the new logo as a decal here in the middle. We've got this really beautiful background, and then all of the buttons here they've updated with different art from the book itself. So I don't know how deep into this. I'm assuming. Can I assume that most people on here are generally familiar with the Fantasy Grounds tabletop system? Like, I don't need to go into the banner buttons or anything, right? I'm going to take that as a yes. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to use. Let's see. Oop, I already have one here. we're going to use my little module here. So I'll be kind of referring to that in the background. If you see 300 windows on my screen, just bear with me.
Okay.
So what I've done is I've put together, basically a story module for each of the different sections of what you're going to do here. So the core concept is the first place that you start in building a character for Vampire, and I'm going to do this build slightly different from the order that it's recommended in the book, because you have to do things slightly differently for Fantasy Grounds, the same way that D&D, you have to kind of put things in a different order for it to work most correctly.
Okay.
So I've used for this character, who I'm going to name Leo. Yep, I've used one of the sample archetypes that they give you here for the characters, and I just kind of built it up from there. So the way that I have this put together, we're going to do our core concept first. And the core concept for your character is essentially you're playing a vampire character, or a kindred character, is the term that they use to refer to them in the game. And they need a core concept, which essentially is who they were in life, and then kind of how they were turned, and what their underlying motivations are, kind of behind everything else. They will have an ambition and desire. We'll get into that later. So for now, because it's easier, I'm going to pop this into the chat and just drag it in to the notes section. All right, so Leo was initiated to the mysteries of Tremere, which is one of the clans, when his many-year-long search for real magic led him to attract the attention of his sire, who vetted and eventually embraced him. Embrace is the term for turning someone into a vampire. And then used what's called a blood bond to bond him to the pyramid, which is the Tremere kind of hierarchy. So he is the type of vampire that, at this time, he couldn't go against his sire's wishes, his vamp daddy's wishes. After only 5 years, the Second Inquisition raided Vienna, which is where the Chantry of the Tremere was, and things kind of started to fall apart from there. This is part of the lore of V5 vampires, that there's this big kind of organization called the Second Inquisition that's going around and just wiping out all of the supernatural in the world, and they managed to take down a big section of this vampire clan by raiding and destroying their headquarters in Vienna.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Chat. Okay, pure grass-fed beef. He wants to know, or she wants to know, are there options for the creatively challenged, a la random tables, for some backstory bits?
There are. We have in the Vampire reference manual, if you look at the clans, you can read up about the clan. So I went to Tremere here because I knew I wanted to do Tremere, because that's going to give me the ability to fill in more of the boxes so you guys can see kind of more what to do. And it gives you the whole backstory of the clan in the top. And if you keep scrolling down, it'll give you these archetypes for, so here, clan archetypes. So I chose Pyramid Loyalist for Leo. And this basically gives you a little bit of what their kind of motivations and background might be. Eternal Scholar, pagan nonconformist, ambitious outsider. So each clan has different numbers of these things, but they're all within that clan motivation for your character. Does that answer your question, Beth?
So that helps you develop your backstory.
Yeah, so that you can build your core concept off of that, and it'll give you a little bit more to go on. Each one of these backstory options, or the random table, it's not necessarily random tables per se, but they will give you examples of things. So to digress a little bit here, World of Darkness and Vampire, all of the different games, Vampire, Werewolf, Mage, all of these that are in the World of Darkness kind of umbrella, run on what's called the Storyteller system. That is the name of the RPG system itself, and it is very much you can pretty much do whatever your GM says you can do. Most of the things in the books are not hard and fast options. They're just kind of examples or recommendations of how to do things.
Oh, okay. So it's very loose and more role play.
Yeah, well, you are collectively telling a story. That's what the whole thing's on. And V5 has kind of refined that even more to the point where almost anything that you're going to do that would require you to make a roll is basically like you're going to RP it. Or, there's even a part in the book that says essentially if you run into a combat situation that takes more than 3 rounds, you should, as the GM, just think about cutting it off there. Like make a single roll to determine who wins and just keep on with the story.
Nice.
Okay, so next, we are now a vampire, but who were we in life? This is going to inform how we act as a vampire. So you're going to choose what are called touchstones and convictions next. In the reference manual, there is a large table that I have linked here of just, again, some examples of convictions. And the convictions are human values that they had in life, that they believed something very strongly, that they're attempting to kind of uphold even after they are embraced. There's a big list of examples here, but essentially you can, choose whatever you want. And so what I've chosen for Leo is the conviction, prove them all wrong by succeeding, and the second conviction, those with power take what they want from those without it. And these were kind of meant to, just give him some flavor. For each conviction, and you can choose between 1 and 3 generally for this, you have to have a touchstone, which is a person from your previous life. It could be someone from your coterie, which is what they call the party, essentially. Your coterie is the group of other kindred that you're, doing things with in the game. But your touchstone is the person who kind of gave you the importance of this conviction. So for Leo, prove them all wrong by succeeding. This is something that his kid sister, Alicia, kind of always gave him the drive for holding that conviction. And then his mom, Mary, wasn't a great person. A lot of people are not great people in Vampire. She said, those with power take what they want from those without it. So I'm going to throw those in here on the other tab under touchstones and convictions, and that's going to start building Leo's relationship map. So there is a great example in the book that I'm going to find real quick. Maybe. The relationship map. So it's going to be something like this, and the GM is just going to keep track of this. So this is the relationship between the members of the coterie, how they relate to each other, how they relate to their backstories, how they relate to the other characters in the game. And this is going to be something that the GM just continually updates and keeps current. This is just a picture, obviously, of an example. The way that it was recommended to me by Bofrin to keep track of this in Fantasy Grounds would just be to go to images and make a new map, like an actual map. And then you could just draw on it. You can use the pins for the SPCs. So I could create Alicia as a SPC, not NPC. They're storyteller player characters. So I could create a player character here for Alicia, and I could say that this is a touchstone, and I could just pin it onto that map for the relationship map. And then that allows me a lot more flexibility with doing this kind of stuff.
Nice. And you could put story pins and all kinds of stuff.
Absolutely. Yep.
Nice. Good idea.
Yes, and Lady Shel just pointed out to me when you click on one of the banner buttons, it does a blood splat.
Oh, that's awesome.
I did have a question.
Sure.
When you were showing the convictions, the first one on there was do not kill. How would a vampire be able to role play something like that? That seems very, do they only eat bodies that are already dead or something?
It wouldn't be dead bodies. They need the vitae, which is the life essence that they get by drinking the blood. But yes, so somebody in the chat I just saw said baggers and vegans. We will get into that, how it could work. It's not going to be great for them though. It would that not feeding from humans is going to push the difficulty for the player up a little bit. And we'll get into that with Predator style. So we've got our touchstones and convictions. So we have a decent idea of what kind of person Leo was. He was very ambitious. He was trying to find out about real magic in life because his mom basically like taught him that, you know, if you don't have any power in life, people are just going to take advantage of you, right? So this kind of, you know, darker spin. Remember, in Vampire, you're not necessarily building a good guy. You're building a monster, right? You're building a vampire. So it is okay, perfectly acceptable in Vampire the Masquerade to build someone who's not very nice. You'll notice I have an extra button up here. This is Matakuri's Open Safety Rule Kit, or TTRPG Safety Rule Toolkit. And essentially what this does is it gives you, the GM and the players, a system for like green card, yellow card, red card, as far as where the story is going. So I think that that's important as the, you know, a conscientious GM to kind of keep that in mind, that some of the themes that you're touching on here might be uncomfortable for some people. Having that safety toolkit there is really nice, and you can find that on the Fantasy Grounds forums is where he posted it.
That's great. So if you have a bunch of new people and they're not familiar, that would be a good idea to have that.
Right. Next, we're going to go with Clan and Sire. So there are all these clans. There are 13 in this edition. There are more clans in this world. They were released in other books that have not been converted to Fantasy Grounds yet. So I think Lasombra and Samichi are in Chicago? Jonan probably knows this. But there are a couple of other clans that have been added since to Vampire V5. They just aren't on Fantasy Grounds yet.
Is there any in the London source?
I don't know. Like I said, I've got the core rule book, and I've been doing a lot of stuff with the Fantasy Grounds version, but I didn't actually play this version all that much before it came out for Fantasy Grounds.
Okay.
So we have the different clans here, and I'm not... it would take a very long time if I wanted to get into all of these, so I'm not really going to. We are going to be making a Tremere today. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag that in, and there we go. Or you can just type it. And you'll see now, instead of the just general kind of vampire Ankh there, it's now turned into the icon for Clan Tremere, which is this kind of circle and a square and a circle and a square kind of deal. They are wizards. And the reason that I did the Tremere for Leo is that since this is a character creation kind of class setup, it's going to give us a chance to use some of the rituals and put those into the character sheet, as well as the just general powers that they get. Leo's sire, I have this whole backstory for. He's an 11th generation pyramid researcher named Dortmund Lavalier. Leo's investigations into real magic reached his ears and sparked his interest, so he arranged to run into him at some point. They had a couple of these, deep conversations over coffee or wine or whatever. Not that Dortmund was actually drinking, but it seemed like he was. And Leo eventually was kind of groomed and embraced into the Tremere clan. We're just going to type his name in here because, again, all of that backstory on Dortmund would be something that we would put in the relationship map. Okay. Next, we're going to get to those attributes. Okay, so in World of Darkness, we're going to have 9 attributes, unlike the 6 that you'd have for Dungeons and Dragons or something, and they fall into 3 different kind of categories. So we have our physical attributes, our social attributes, and our mental attributes, and then each one of these across here has its kind of approach, we'll call it. So the top would be force, right? Strength, charisma, intelligence. These are just the raw force for each of these things. And then the second line would be finesse, dexterity, manipulation, and wits. And then the third line would be resilience or resistance. So stamina, composure, and resolve. So we have 4 dots in one of them, 3 dots in 3 of them, 2 dots in 4 of them, and 1 dot in 1. So you're always going to have at least 1 dot here. And the way that the attributes work, 1 dot equals 1 d10 that you can roll. So this is a d10 system, and you create dice pools by how many dots you have. So if I have 3 dots in something, it means that if I'm rolling on a check for it, I would roll 3 dice. If I have 1 dot, I would only get to roll 1.
So what's your average check number usually? Like 10, 20?
It can be modified in a few different ways. The success for a die is going to be a 6 or better. And you're not counting a DC per se. You're not going for a target number. You're going for a number of successes.
Got it. Fair enough.
So the more dice you have, the more likely it is that you're going to get the number of successes that you need. And there are some other systems there with the hunger dice and such that we're going to get into after we build the character. So let's see. Strength 1. He's a wizard, right? He's not too well. He's a blood magic user, so he's not too strong. He's got 2 dots in dex. Is this not working?
Click to the right. I mean, go to the line where the big... Yeah. Over to the right of the... Yeah. Nope, all the way to the right of the bubble. Yeah, right about in there. No, you got to go all the way over where the large bubble is, or the large dice-looking thing, and click on that.
Aha, they added a cogwheel.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well, that's
Aslo
nice.
just said that in the chat. He said that they changed it in yesterday's update on how to do attributes and skill stuff.
Good. Nice, because before you had to click on the...
Yeah, no, that's actually really nice because it was very easy to unclick things before. So you can see here, health is going to be based on stamina. It's going to be your stamina count plus 3. So when we add that second dot in stamina, it's going to give us another health box, right? So there is the automation built into the character sheet here.
Nice.
Okay, and then when we close that, we can see it applies up here. The willpower box is also filled up there, as I did some of the stats here. And these are both health and willpower are what are called trackers. So it's not a set value of points. This is just kind of how we're going to keep track of damage that's done. And willpower is a pool that we're going to use. You can spend points of willpower to reroll dice, but also things can do willpower damage to you because in Vampire, there is a social conflict just like there's a physical conflict. So going to a board meeting with the powerful vampires in your city could hurt your willpower just as much as getting into a fight with a gang member could hurt your health.
What about getting ridiculed or...
That could cause willpower damage. Generally, I would say most kindred are not going to take too much ridicule. But it depends on what their stats are. So if someone was making fun of you, for instance, you would roll, say, composure or resolve, or maybe you'd have some advantages to being more okay with that, let it roll off you kind of thing. And so those would determine, based on the number of successes you had on that roll, it would determine the amount of willpower damage you would take from it.
Cool.
Next, we're going to do skills. So I'm going to just go with balanced for Leo here. It gives you 3 options to do the skills. In the reference manual, there's also a method of choosing skills where you essentially are going to, say my lifestyle is this, so I get these skills or this many dots in social skills, and my, my powers are this, so I get this many dot in this type of skills. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use the balanced because it's easy. So we're going to go with academics at 3.
That makes sense for a wizard.
Occult at 3. Science at 3. Etiquette at 2. So academics is going to be, a field of study. And the more dots you have in something, the better trained you are in that thing. So if you read the reference manual, I believe academics with 3 dots is you essentially have, but you definitely have a college degree, possibly even, post-bachelor's education in that topic. Just to give you an example. So when you're building these skills, you're using these options here that it gives you with how many dots you have to spend. But what you're also doing is you're thinking about the character. So my guy, he was only embraced, what did I say, 5 years ago? Which means if he was, say, 25 or 30 years old, or even a little bit older than that, he would know how to do things like drive. So if you want to be, any good at driving whatsoever, you're going to need to throw a dot in there. So that's one of the other things you can do to kind of choose these skills.
So if you were embraced at an earlier age, it wouldn't necessarily make sense to have drive.
If you were embraced at or in an earlier age, did you say? In an earlier age, yes. So that's going to get into what's called the Sea of Time, which is what generation you are and when, what period, like what year it was when you were embraced. But you might still have the drive skill. It would just be driving a horse and buggy or driving a horseless carriage instead of driving a modern car.
Correct.
Okay. So once we've taken our skills, we're going to get free specialties in the 4 things that require them. So craft. I've taken a dot in craft. What kind of craft do I know how to do? You have to pick one, so you take a specialty. And when you take a specialty, what that does is it adds 1 to your dice pool when you're using that thing. So for Leo, I've done etching, because I figured that would help him like make ritual tools and things like that. Performance, he's had some voice training. That's important for your ritual magician to be, that they know how to chant for long periods of time, right? I said he was on this long quest to find out about magic and kind of hunt it down and determine what of it might be true and what of it might be, just fake or stage magic. So I've given him research as a focus in academics. And for science, we're going to give him biology. Okay, and then in addition to those 4 skills, so anytime someone takes one of those 4 skills, they have to take a specialty in it to say what type of that skill they know. And then you get 1 free specialty, so any trained skill that you've taken, you get a special, like 1 free specialty in it. So what I've done is I've given him etiquette for the pyramid, which is that organization that he was kind of brought into as soon as he was embraced. And obviously, if you are brought into an organization like that, the first thing they're going to teach you is kind of like the standard operating procedures for that organization, right?
Yeah, how to behave and interact with people in there.
Right. You don't want to tick off the higher ups on your first day. That would not reflect well on his sire either. All right, so here is the predator style. So vampires need blood, right? They have to have it. That is kind of like how they keep going. So the Predator style is the Kindred's preferred way of getting that blood or getting that vitae. So we're going to look at the Predator types here just a moment. This is not necessarily the only way you can feed, but it is the way that you would generally choose to feed. So we have Alley Cat, which is basically somebody who like overpowers someone in a dark alley. Bagger here, you were asking about how would you not hurt people. Lady Shel, Bagger would be one for that. So basically you like buy bags of blood, like blood, donated blood from the black market, or steal them from a hospital, or you work at a hospital or something like that, and you drink the blood from there. Blood leech, you only drink from other vampires. That's a hard one to play, I would say, because it's really, really risky to do that. Cleavers are people who... So the word cleave means to, stick together and to cut, right? So you secretly feed from family and friends that you have a tie to, because you can't let them go, or also it could be because you want to cut ties with them and like just become the beast, right? So it could go either way on this one. This is considered not okay. It is a breach of the Masquerade, and if one of the big organizations finds out that you're doing this, there is a chance they'll come in and just take out all of those people, and probably you, because it's a big no-no in vampire society. And the reason for that is, it's in the name of the game. The Masquerade is most of the vampires have decided that it's better for everyone if the world doesn't know about vampires. So the Masquerade is that vampires don't exist. It's this, they're trying to pretend that they don't exist. So if you are if you're embraced as a kindred, and then you go around feeding on all of your former friends and family members, somebody might figure out that you are a vampire, right?
I see.
Consensualist, this would be somebody who like kind of tricks people into or entices people into giving them blood consensually. Farmers feed from animals. Canonically, like in most of the video games, this would be like rats, that they just drink their blood. Osiris is like a celebrity or like a cult leader or something, where the people are willingly giving you blood because they think you're essentially a god or a prophet of some type.
A LARP organizer. I love it.
Hey, could be. Sandman is you either put people to sleep, or you are, an anesthesiologist or something like that, or you just wait until they're asleep and sneak in and drink on them. Scene Queen is you're a big person in a specific scene. So you would, you understand them, you have status in that scene, and they, generally you could be like, oh, well, I'm the coolest one in this group, so if you hang out with me, then you'll be cool too. And then, by the way, to stay in this group, you need to give me some of your blood.
It's almost like the other one.
The Osiris, it's
yeah.
They play a lot differently. The concepts sound the same until you start to actually get into it. I'm probably just not explaining it perfectly. Sirens are people who feed during sex or seduction. So for Leo, we're going to go with Bagger as his type. So he doesn't, he's not looking to hunt people down or chase them down. He's not really trying to put everybody to sleep or seduce them or anything like that. He doesn't have time for that. He's focused on his research. So he's just going to go buy some blood bags.
Or break into a blood bank.
Checking the Bagger thing, your predator type is going to give you specific advantages, some skills, some flaws. because you've done these activities so much to get your sustenance. So we're going to get 1 dot in blood sorcery because we are a Tremere, and we're just going to keep that in mind. We can add a specialty to either larceny or streetwise. Since we have streetwise already, we're going to add the black market specialty. And that just means that, you know, the streetwise is like, you know, how well can you get around the city? So specifically Leo getting around the city, he knows where all the people are that might have this blood that he needs. He's going to get Iron Gullet, which is a merit. And I'm just going to drop that right in there. And this is going to be a 3 dot thing. And essentially what this means is because he's so used to, you know, feeding on bagged blood, he can drink blood that other vampires wouldn't be really able to get much benefit from. So he can drink cold blood, he could drink blood that started to curdle, he can even drink things like fractionated plasma and still get some benefit from it for hunger's sake. We're also going to gain an enemy because you can't be in the black market without making some enemies. It's not in there, so we're just going to add it. And a 2 dot enemy could be a small gang, or it could be another vampire. It's going to be somebody who could theoretically actually hurt you. A 1 dot enemy would be somebody who doesn't like you, but maybe they're just trying to, like, you know, threaten you a lot. 2 dot enemy actually, like, wants you removed.
So that's a friendly way of saying kill you.
Or they could do something like, for instance, if they do something that exposes you as one of the kindred, then one of the organizations might take you out for them. You know, so you'd have to be extra careful that they didn't hire a PI to, you know, watch you sucking on a blood bag like it's a Kool-Aid. And then we have our predator pool here down at the bottom. Essentially, this is what you're going to roll in to do your feeding. So you need intelligence and streetwise to acquire this blood, because it's, you know, you have to be smart enough to know where to find it, and you have to kind of like also know some people that might have it. All right. Next, we're going to choose our disciplines. The disciplines are the powers that are specific to the clan that you're in. There are clanless vampires, they're called the Caitiff, and they're also in V5 what's called Thin Bloods, which means that it's been so long since the original vampire turned the second vampire, and so forth, that the blood is thinned out to the point where they don't necessarily have the same abilities as a full-blooded vampire. So for Tremere, I'm going to take Blood Sorcery, Auspex, and Dominate is the third discipline that you get as a Tremere, but I am going to go ahead and remove that dot because he's not actually trained in it. So the way that it works is you get 2 dots in one of them and 1 dot in the other one. So obviously, because I want to be a wizard, I'm going to go ahead and give him his 2 dots in Blood Sorcery. And we'll leave him with 1 dot in Auspex. Auspex is, let's see how they say it. kind of like scrying or seeing things that are not normally seen. And we'll see some of that in a moment. So each of these disciplines have powers. So since I get 2 dots in blood sorcery, that means that I can pick 1 level 2 and 1 level 1 power. And I've already taken these. But then remember, since I'm a bagger and I'm a Tremere, I get an extra dot in blood sorcery. So I actually have 3 dots there. So my level 1 is going to be a taste for blood. Level 2 will be extinguish. And level 3 will be potency. So we're going to add those in there just like that. Close that out, open up Auspex. Sense the unseen. And then again, no dots in Dominate. He can't actually use that skill. When he gains experience through playing the game, when the character gains experience through the player playing the game, he can choose to take dots in this skill for a certain number of experience points that would be lower. Any vampire can theoretically learn any discipline unless it's clan specific, but it would cost them more points for each dot to train in an out of clan skill. Since Leo is a Tremere, he's trained in blood sorcery. That means that he can do ritual magic as well. So we're going to go ahead and give him this level 1 ritual. Alright, and then each character starts with 7 points of advantages and 2 points of flaws. So I'm just going to throw these in here. There is a long list of advantages and flaws. Advantages are broken down into 3 categories: backgrounds, lore sheets, and merits is the third section. And each of them are different things. So backgrounds is things that you start with, essentially. So I'm going to start with the Haven background. And that's a 1 dot. My Haven also has a laboratory in it, so that's a 2nd dot. I'm going to have 2 dots in Mala. Mala is or Mali is the plural, is the kind of an old Arabic concept of teachers or elders in your group. And because Leo was part of the pyramid, even though the pyramid has fallen at this point, I feel like he would still have people he could go to for advice or background information or help in advancing his skills. 2 dots there. And then resources. Resources is basically how much income do you have, right? So a 1 dot resources would be, you're basically living paycheck to paycheck. I felt that this was appropriate for Leo because the pyramid's not around anymore, so it's not like he's getting free room and board. Like, he's got to kind of almost work a job at this point to keep himself going. Then I chose a lore sheet, which is circulatory system. The circulatory system is essentially a smuggling black market network that basically like keeps herds of humans to get blood from, and then they sell it to vampires. They're not a great organization, but with Leo having very few other options and being a bagger, he kind of had to get into this organization so he would have access to their resources for him to be able to feed regularly. Yeah, it's Azel. It's not a great thing, but it did fit the character, so here we are. And then for his flaws, he's going to be disliked, which means he's just not a likable dude. That people do not like him. And long bond. Again, because he was a member of the Tremere Pyramid. One of his flaws is that if he is blood bonded to someone, that bond stays around for a lot longer. So even though he hasn't seen his sire in quite some time, if he had any chance to see him, help him, anything like that, he would basically have to take it because that bond is still in effect even after all this time has passed. All right, and here's what we were talking about with the generations and what time you were embraced and all that kind of thing, Laerun. So the Sea of Time refers to the generation and the real age, the total age of the character, right?
Okay.
Leo was only embraced about 5 years ago. Where is it? Here we go. So in Vampire the Masquerade, Cain is the mythical, like, first vampire. And this is kind of like the oral history of the vampires. Most vampires nowadays would have no idea if Cain actually exists. The third generation were the antediluvians, and these are the ones that founded the 13 clans. Fourth and fifth would be Methuselah's because they've been around forever. Sixth through ninth would be elders. And then you get into the 10th and 11th generations, the Ancillae. 10th is about the lowest generation that you could realistically roleplay in this version of the game. These people are up to 250 years old in real money.
Okay.
And the 12th and 13th generations are neonates. And then the 14th through 16th generations are the thin bloods. So what we've done is we've made Leo a 12th generation, which means he's still a fully fledged vampire. But he was only embraced about 5 years ago, and we said he was maybe 25 or 30, so he's going to be a chowder. And then his sire was born as a human and embraced sometime between 1780 and 1940. He doesn't really know, but he might have been one of those ones that had to learn to drive all over again. And your sire is always one generation older than you, so he would be 11th generation. As a chowder in the 12th, he starts with a blood potency of 1. This is going to have some effect on how different things go off and what your ability strength is. So blood potency of 1 at the 12th generation, that's a good starting point for a solid starting character in this game. Finally, we're going to give him, well, maybe not finally. Yes, finally, we're going to give him an ambition and desire. His ambition is going to be the long-term goal of the character. It should be theoretically possible within the rule set. So, for instance, you're not going to say, I'm going to be the strongest, oldest vampire in the world. Theoretically, you could maybe make that happen, but it's unlikely that you're going to be playing this game for 100 years. So, I would say that would not be the best choice for an ambition. Leo's ambition is to restore the pyramid. And that is theoretically possible if he could find enough of the elders and, get some work done on the building and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to put that in. And then the desire is the short-term goal of the character. It's usually something that can be achieved in the next session. And with each of these, when you complete an ambition, you immediately remove 1 level of aggravated willpower damage. That's like kind of a big deal. And then when you definitively work to complete a desire once per session, you can remove 1 point of superficial willpower damage. All the damage to health and willpower is going to be either superficial or aggravated. I'm not going to get into that too much. I feel like people are more or less familiar with that if they've done anything in World of Darkness before. So his desire for the first session is going to be to get in touch with some of the Pyramid Mawali. And doing this could be something as easy as making a phone call to a number that still works, or as difficult as like having to go to Vienna from wherever he's starting out and find somebody. But it's definitely doable within one session. So we filled in pretty much everything that has to be filled in here. Obviously, there are some more things I could put in concept. I could put in the tenets of the Chronicle, which is the campaign. They're called Chronicles in Vampire. So this tenet would be, for instance, the three of us, me and you and Lady Shel, Laerun, are putting together a coterie, and we have specific goals for our coterie. Those would go in Chronicle tenets. I could find and enter the Clan Bane of the Tremere here. I could start, typing in the physical location and description of where my haven is, and that kind of thing. But
let's take a quick breather. Lady Shel, are we going to do the thing?
Sure. You want to take a little teeny break here, and we will give away a prize. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to have my microphone so far from my mouth.
So Erelon,
down.
Erelon, if you could bring up the combat
Dice.
tracker. The thing, the prize, the giveaway.
He's trying to be mysterious because I yelled at him before about not what it was.
I've been stifled.
About not saying what it is?
Yeah. So, what we're going to do is anybody in the chat that has not acquired a standard license, or maybe even know somebody who needs one, we're going to give out a standard license. And how we're going to do it is, if you're in the stream, I'd like you to type a number between 00 and 100, and we are going to roll a percentile dice, and the closest person to that number is going to win the prize. There's only 15 people here, so again, you're gonna type a number, just one number, in the chat, and you will win a standard license that you can either take for yourself or you can gift it to somebody. And we'll need you to PM us in Discord. So if Lady Shel would put our Discord in case, and once all the numbers are in, then we will roll the dice, and the person that's closest will win the prize. So we got 4 entries so far. And Lady Shel has put the Discord in the chat just in case you are not a member. You can PM either myself or Lady Shel with the Fantasy Grounds user. And if they don't have a username, they need to make an account first. So let's give this about 2 more minutes. We'll kind of state it, maybe another minute. While we're waiting, what would you say is your favorite feature or new functionality of Vampire, Erelon?
Favorite new functionality? I guess just honestly, it's nothing that's new or even specific to this rule set. It's just finally having the rule set. I have been a World of Darkness fanboy for quite a while now. So,
all right, cool. Yeah, I was wondering, if there was any big changes between this version and the last. Also, I know that people LARP a lot with this game. I'm wondering if this version here will make that more of a thing to include in their LARPing sessions.
I think it would be fairly easy to do. Like I said, just the fact that when you're playing this game, it's so much more about telling a story. So there are fewer checks, there are fewer rolls for each of the conflicts, and even the fact that they, combat is not a separate section in the core rulebook. It doesn't come up as much to need a whole section to itself. So they have conflicts, and like I said, social conflicts can be just as damaging or as beneficial to the vampire, or the kindred rather, as physical ones. So I like that idea, and I think it would be great for LARPers to be able to play out, for instance, a banquet at the Camarilla Prince's estate instead of just running around with a giant cardboard sword.
All right. So Lady Shel has put in the information. If anybody else in the chat, if you're live and you can get to your computer, pick a number between 00 and 99, and we'll get you a prize if you're the closest person to that. So right now we have 4 entries. Going once, going twice, going thrice. Okay, so Erelon, go ahead and roll a percentile, and we will try to figure out who is the winner.
So that was 64.
64. It looks like Bella Morte.
Yep.
Bella Morte. Yes, so Bella, you know what to do. Just PM me or Lady Shel in the Discord, and we will try to get a Fantasy Grounds user ID from you, and we can gift that to the person who won. So thank you very much. Okay, so anything else before we get going, or how are you doing on time there, Erelon? How are you doing on time?
I'm okay. Hazel said rerolling die with willpower, the implementation in Fantasy Grounds. That is pretty cool. I will. Yeah, you know what? Let's just go ahead and do that. So say Leo here is in the combat tracker, and he makes a roll to do something, right? And he fails it. Let's just say he's going to roll with composure.
Okay.
So I'm going to click, since I have to roll 2 different things, I'm going to click the plus on the first one, and then I'm going to double click the die icon next to the second one. Okay, and it's going to roll that number of dice, right? And then it's going to roll, so the ones with the icons here, those are my successes. I've got 3 successes. And then say I didn't like that. I needed more successes to get this thing pushed through. What I could do is I could spend points of willpower to reroll specific die.
Oh, okay.
So you see how that works? And I did in fact get 1 more success out of that.
So it was worth it.
For sure. If especially if the success that I needed was a 4, then that just pushed me up over the edge. And having the ability to just click on that, choose the individual dice that you want to re-roll. I mean, it's a really great implementation.
So, is there any other Azel that you can think of that we might want to show?
Right, because I think Azel is doing an actual story game, and I am not currently. Nice. So there might be some play stuff that they are aware of that I am not.
By the way, folks, if you're not a part of Fantasy Grounds College, I would definitely consider joining. Also, the rule set's been very popular lately. We have our own channel for it. We'll probably leave it up for maybe even indefinitely. We're trying to get people to embrace the rule set, get some games going, and namely some classes, because there are people who know how to play, but they're not really familiar with Fantasy. And also, we want to train each other and help each other out. I've noticed a lot of camaraderie, teamwork, and I noticed that the people that are involved here are actually sharing information, helping each other out, and figuring the rule set out. So this is really great. Yeah, embrace. You know
nice.
Okay, so you've covered just about everything. That's great. Can you show us a little bit of the artwork? Can we look
Sure.
at a couple images, or maybe one of your favorites, or
Mm,
anything that would give us a sense of some of the book itself?
okay, sure. So there are two main factions in the Masquerade V5. Those are the Anarchs, who believe that the Kindred should be free to kind of do things the way that they want to, and the Camarilla, which believe that the Masquerade has to be upheld at all times, and they are more of a traditional kind of like old school organization. So we have some.
Remind me of the mafia, the mafiosos.
So here we have two Anarchs in a physical confrontation.
Oh, cool.
Typical coterie of Anarchs.
Nice. So it's like a gang.
Yeah, they're again, they're all about personal kind of empowerment and whatever you want to do it as long as it's working for the betterment of the group. It doesn't really matter about who likes it or who doesn't.
Nice. So how does gear and vehicles and all that stuff show up in the rule set?
So this was something that kind of threw me at first as well. Oh, here we go. There's some kindred fashion. The equipment in this rule set is not super important. There are a few things that you can take item-wise that would matter. For instance, wow, I'm blanking on this. Items, here we go. So these things are things that would actually matter. So for instance, a regular gun of some sort, let's say a shotgun, you would just go into your character sheet, and in the inventory you would just put, shotgun, and then however much extra damage it's going to add, specifically against other kindred. Mortals are going to take damage from everything, right? Like it's fairly easy for a vampire to mess with a human. Messing with other vampires is going to be fairly difficult for them. You're not going to be doing inventory like you are in, for instance, 5th edition or Pathfinder or something here, because again, it's all about the story that you're telling together and using your specific superhuman abilities. It's not necessarily about the things that you use to do so. So I could say, as the storyteller, shotgun's going to give you a damage of 2, and that's essentially just going to be, the extra damage that you do when you make your rolls. And for a shotgun, that would be a firearms, and let's say dexterity firearms roll for this.
So does it add actually 2, or does it add 2 successes?
It just adds to your pool, yeah.
Okay.
So then
Got it.
if I hit with this, which 1 success is probably not going to do it for me, because I only have 2 dice there. I did not make this character. He's not trained in firearms, so I didn't make him to shoot people. So since he only has 1 success, it's unlikely that he would have hit anything with that shotgun. If he did, it would have done 2 points of aggravated damage to a mortal or 2 points of superficial damage to a kindred.
Now, does superficial damage add up? I mean, does it matter if you have your arm blown off or something?
So that would be an injury, and those are tracked slightly differently. So you could say, like, yes, you're a vampire. Okay, you had your arm blown off. Well, that's something you're going to have to deal with separately from just your health pool, because it's more realistic that way. You could be, as a vampire, your body is dead, right?
Yeah.
So you don't technically need that. Or as long as you tie that off or put a tourniquet on it or something, so the blood isn't leaking out, you're still good to go. But you are missing an arm.
Not gonna go, right, you're not going to go into shock or anything.
Right. But you're still missing an arm, which might make things more difficult for you down the line. So recovering from crippling injuries and things like that. There are specific rules in the book for that, and they'd be under the advanced physical conflict section of the guide. Like I said, I haven't actually played this character, but the big thing here is, like I said, and why it would be so good for LARPing is because you're not, the items don't matter nearly as much as other rule sets. It's more about what you're doing, how you want to do it, and then what the consequences of that are, because we have this huge relationship map here in the background that's always being updated, and there's all these, you know, shadowy politics and alliances and all this kind of stuff going on in the background, right?
Interesting. So do you have anything else you want to share with us? Like, are you working on anything personally, or maybe you know something that the community's working on that you can tell us about? Or
I know
potentially,
from the forums that there are quite a few games that are getting started. I also know that people are so ready to play this game that they are doing conversions on their own of some of the books, or at least parts of the books, for other of the things that have already been released. White Wolf and them are currently still working on, you know, more. This edition is not over. It is currently being produced. So as time goes on, I would expect to see Fantasy Grounds catch up to the current publishing, and then, you know, as each new book at that point comes out, theoretically we would get it fairly shortly after it comes out, for hardcover and PDF.
I heard a rumor that the London thing's coming out next. Is that just a rumor, or do you guys know?
I thought I saw that they were going to do the faction books first, which would be
good.
Camarilla and Anarch. And I know they have said definitely they're going to do London. The one, Luthbel, who's one of the devs for it, for Smiteworks, I think, in the Fantasy Grounds chat, he's one of the ones that's doing a lot of the conversion work, him and Mad Beardman. And I don't know, actually. They said that they have been most looking forward to converting Chicago by Night, which is one of the setting books.
Yeah.
And that one's actually really cool because Chicago by Night gives you the kind of examples of how to add in the other World of Darkness rule sets to your game. So, for instance, it shows you how to make a werewolf character, or a mage character, or a geist character from the other World of Darkness things in Vampire.
Sweet.
So it kind of.
So that'd be a good plot point to sneak in there every now and then.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, because all of this happens within the World of Darkness, when you play Vampire, you're focusing on being a vampire and vampire society, but that doesn't mean you're not going to come up against a werewolf, right?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So, the other, I guess the last thing that I would like to point out, the way that I generally play Vampire is, because it's set in the modern world, basically like right now, it's not, you know, a different fantasy world. It's not some crazy like sci-fi thing in the future. It's here and now. So one of the things that I've done in a few of my campaigns that I've played in and that I've written before is just, you don't have a map for this game? Okay, well, pull up Google Maps. That's the street you're on.
Yeah,
just
cool.
Use the city that's nearest to you, or the one that you're most familiar with. What city did you grow up in? That's where you are. So it makes it really easy for the storyteller to kind of come up with ideas and locations and all that kind of thing, because these are real places that you're working with, or they could be.
Right. And it would be really nice if you had a face-to-face group and you were all familiar with your own neighborhood or your own town, so it would make sense.
Yep, exactly.
Gotcha. Can you have a pet lupine? I don't see why not.
If you're talking about a werewolf from the game Werewolf, then probably not, because they kind of hate each other. If you're talking about like an actual wolf as a pet, also probably not, because animals can sense that vampires are not living beings, even though they're animate. So generally, animals hate the kindred. Will either run away or attack almost immediately.
Wow. All right. So, any other questions before we call it a night? We've gone for a good hour. I want to thank all of you for joining. I'm hoping that this helps you a little bit in discovering the rule set and embracing the rule set. Yeah, so Erelon, I want to thank you for coming, and Lady Shel, thank you for moderating the chat. And by the way, the FGC prize was donated by Lady Shel, and we hope that you get a lot of usage or mileage out of it, or your whoever you picked, they get some good use out of it.
Before we go, I want to give the links to sign up for the 2 classes that we have coming up. Erelon has room for 1 more person in his character creation class, so if you want to join that, I'm going to post.
Yeah, so if you guys want to participate in character creation, so she said Erelon's got 1 more spot. Really glad that filled up, by the way. And I'm sure there'll be others as the rule set is further developed and as people get more and more familiar.
I would expect to see that as well. I know there are at least 3 or 4 of us now that are doing character creation, so yeah, absolutely.
I really like how you guys are kind of indirectly coming together as a team and kind of knocking this out. That is excellent.
Well, it's like anything. We've all been looking forward to this for a while, and having it, available on a platform that we're already familiar with, or for the majority of us, is just huge.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect to see Shane right away, and as soon as I talked to him and he got the rule set, man, he was boffering, same thing. Doug Davison actually gifted Fantasy Grounds College 3 licenses. They reached out to me, I didn't ask, and they said, "Hey, would you guys like 2 or 3 comp licenses for teachers?" And I said, "Absolutely. Let me get you some names." So the next day, I gave them a few names, and within a couple hours, they had the rule set. So that was really cool.
That is definitely awesome.
Yeah. And then for another show that we might uh, actually do in the future that has to do with Vampire on the All Things Fantasy Grounds show, if we can get the developers on, and I will have a special guest if I can get her on, and we'll have another show, and we'll be talking about Vampire once again until we get tired of it. So, yeah, Doug is a really cool dude. So, yeah, everybody, thank you for showing. Erelon, thanks for helping, and I wish all of you kindred out to have fun and to embrace this rule set.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks
Cheers.
for coming on.